William Shakespeare was a prolific English poet and playwright, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's preeminent dramatist. Shakespeare was born and brought up in Stratford-upon-Avon. This is where he attained the title, the Bard of Avon. Scholars are unsure of the exact year he was born, but records of his christening indicate he was born in 1564. His active years were in the midst of the Elizabethan era, named such after the reigning queen Elizabeth I, who was a patron of the arts. This helped Shakespeare as well as other writers pursue theater. Brought up from humble beginnings, William Shakespeare worked as both an actor and a playwright. His plays were wildly popular, and he achieved great financial success by buying shares of his acting troupe until he was the sole owner. After his death in 1616, there was about a 100-year period in which Shakespeare's works fell out of mainstream culture. By the time his plays and poems re-emerged into even higher levels of popularity, many of the original copies of his works were lost or damaged. From as early as the 1700s until today, scholars, historians, and archaeologists have worked to reassemble his plays in their original format. To introduce Shakespeare's works, we will begin by studying his sonnets, which will familiarize us with his rhyme scheme and iambic pentameter. Shakespeare wrote all his sonnets and his plays in iambic pentameter, which is a kind of metrical form that has 10 syllables per line. For example, the first line of Shakespeare's famous Sonnet 18 is spoken, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" As you can see, this line contains 10 syllables. The English sonnet existed before Shakespeare, but after his success, most English poets followed this exact formula. A Shakespearean sonnet consists of exactly 14 lines, 3 quatrains, each containing 4 lines, and a final couplet of 2 lines. Shakespeare also always followed the same rhyme scheme, A-B-A-B, C-D-C-D, E-F-E-F, G-G. As you can see, Sonnet 18 follows this rhyme scheme. Line 9 of most of Shakespeare's sonnets contains a shift in meaning. This is called a volta. It is usually indicated with words like but, nevertheless, or however, any sort of word that indicates a shift in meaning. This is a basic overview of Shakespeare's sonnet structure. We will study techniques for understanding and evaluating sonnets' themes and meanings later in the unit. Shakespeare is best known for his plays, of which he wrote about 37. His plays are divided into 17 history plays, based on fictionalized versions of real events, 10 comedies, and 10 tragedies. Shakespeare's most famous and most studied plays are his tragedies, which include Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and Macbeth. Let's take a look at Hamlet. Hamlet, like all Shakespearean tragedies, contains 5 acts, ordered as follows. Act 1 is the exposition. We meet the dramatis personae, the characters. The time and place are established, and we learn about the antecedents of the story. Act 2 is complications. This is where the course of action becomes more complicated. The tying of knots takes place. Interests clash, intrigues are spawned. Act 3 is the climax of action. The development of conflict reaches its high point. The hero stands at a crossroads, leading to victory or defeat, crashing or soaring. Act 4 is the falling action. The consequences of Act 3 play out, momentum slows, and tension is heightened by false hopes and fears. If it's a tragedy, the hero looks as if he can be saved. Act 5 is the catastrophe. The conflict is resolved, usually through a catastrophe, the downfall of the hero. One of Shakespeare's most famous theatrical techniques was the use of the soliloquy. A soliloquy is defined as an act of speaking one's thoughts aloud when by oneself or regardless of any hearers, especially by characters in a play. While this technique was in use before Shakespeare, he often made soliloquies central to the drama in the play, and he revolutionized the technique by exploring the psychology of his characters with their soliloquies. The most famous and oft-cited of this dynamic is in what is referred to as Soliloquy number 4 in Shakespeare's tragic play Hamlet.
To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub.
As we continue in the unit, we will discuss further the elements of the tragic play as well as Shakespeare's comedies and history plays.